reserved. Unauthorized use or...
All right, guys. Hello. It's Bob again. And as you can see, we're going to talk Supreme number 3. I have to be honest here. When these comics first came out, I remember getting Supreme 1 and 2. And I think it was after number 2 that for some reason I just wasn't interested anymore. And I think it was just because, I was in love with a certain artist through Image that I had followed, like Will Spartacchio and Jim Lee and Tom McFarlane and all them. And Brian Murray was the one who was drawing Supreme. So, there was a major difference here between the first and second Supreme, where the first Supreme was drawn by Rob Liefeld. Or actually, I think the first one was Rob Liefeld in the back of one book, and then volume 2 or something like that was when it started off with Supreme number 1, which was inked by Liefeld. But now I have a new appreciation because I'm seeing Brian Murray's artwork, and I'm thinking that it's much better than I had given credit for. It's definitely better than Liefeld. It's better than anything Liefeld has ever drawn, period. Which is wild because Brian Murray doesn't really have that extreme studios house style. He's going a little larger than he should or whatever, but as you can see here, this is Brian Murray's artwork. But let's dive in here. What I'm surprised with the most is I know I'm seeing this. Rob Liefeld is the co-plotter. Brian Murray apparently did the writing. So when you're a co-plotter and you do the scripts, he's also doing the pencils and the colors. Brian Murray is doing the heavy lifting on this comic, and you can tell. And I'm going to give Brian Murray most of the credit here. I know that Liefeld's putting on here that he's the co-plotter and the creator, but I really feel that Brian Murray had more to say on Supreme than Rob Liefeld ever did. Okay? And you can tell because there are characters in here. So it says that Rob Liefeld is the creator of Supreme, okay? But there are characters in here that I believe were created by Brian Murray because these are not Rob Liefeld characters, okay? But we'll get to them, but we're going to start off here where apparently an old movie during World War II is being shown of Supreme fighting this war. And we get a nice little cameo appearance by Crow T. Robot, which is actually Menagerie, who is a shapeshifter. So, again, this is why I know that this is more Brian Murray than anything else, because you've never gotten anything like this from Rob Liefeld, okay? So, basically what we're doing here is they're being briefed with a video showing, video footage of Supreme so that they can learn who he was and get a background history on the superhero that had been gone for 50 years or so. And then out here we have this this ship that Supreme seems to be moving out of orbit or whatever. I think this may be the Catellans that he grabbed their ship and is moving it out of the way. It's not really stated what's happening there. Now what we have here is obviously it's like a double page spread thing here, right? But it doesn't read that way because if you follow this across here, down here, you should follow this across here and then follow this across here. And that's not what happens. If we go like this, then we have to come down here to read this, to come back up here to read this, to come here to read this. So it didn't work out that way, but it was interesting layout. Brian Murray's trying things, and for the most part, I feel like it works. But basically, they're just stating that it was just Supreme that won World War II single-handedly. Rewriting history for the sake of the character or whatever. Or this is a part of a secret from the government that's what happened, is that Supreme is the one that won the war. And he's just letting them know hey, Supreme is apparently going to be living on Earth now. that he made it his home again. Okay, I mean, I don't know. I guess I thought that was pretty obvious if he came back to Earth, and he kind of said that, and I'm sure that like he's talked to people or whatever. So I don't know. But Temple here is just, I guess, laying the groundwork for them to know what's happening, and then he suggests that Riot here get a new costume because his costume is a little too 70s ish. And Riot takes that a little personally. But again, this is why I think if we look at these characters, these are not Rob Liefeld characters. Not in any way, shape, or form would any Rob Liefeld character be drawn in this manner. I actually love this guy. I love the whole look of this guy, the colors that were used. Just, I don't know, this is wild. He has so much going on. But I'm into it. This was one of the worst costumes I've seen. Like, I don't know, he's wearing like a Star Trek jacket with a kind of a half mask or whatever, skull cap thing. So it wasn't working. So I agree with that. And I'm thinking that was brought up outside of the comic. Like, Rob Liefeld may have been like, hey, I love the character designs, but this one guy needs to update his costume because it doesn't look great. And then Brian Murray wrote that into the story. Because again, we know that Brian Murray wrote this. There is no Liefeld in this whatsoever. Also, I'd just like to point out here, Brian Murray, someone who was not a comic book artist at the time, he was a colorist, but he's an obvious artist. As we can see here, he's putting backgrounds in everything. We know where these characters are, and I just feel like that's a big thing. And again, that's another thing that's like not following the Extreme Studios house style, is by providing us with that and actual good storytelling. So that's kind of wild. It's kind of wild that with this character, Liefeld would have had that happen. He wouldn't have put a different artist on here to do it. But I also feel that this is one of the reasons before Alan Moore was brought on that this comic book endured, is because there was story to it. There was, Brian Murray seems to be putting some care into this. So Riot is going to go talk to this guy who is like the one woman, Edna Mole or whatever from The Incredibles that creates the superhero costumes. He's going to go talk to him about getting a new costume. Menagerie says he's going to tag along. And, what's his name? Skyraker? Yeah, Skyraker. They invite him to come along and said that he can get all armor-alled up or something like that and laugh about it. But Skyraker just leaves. And that's basically it. He's talking about, the reasons why he works for this team was to get himself out of his old neighborhood and to help people and such. Skyraker goes to the roof and contacts something and gets beamed up to his ship, which apparently is in orbit over the Earth. Now, it says that it's his vehicle slash pet, so I'm thinking that it's like a sentient ship, which, pretty cool. I think that's actually something that came out before Farscape, where they had like the same thing going on. So, Skyraker appears on this ship, actually takes off his helmet so we can see that they're, what's underneath. But we're seeing it in shadow, so we're not really seeing a face here. But he's getting information on the Catalan battle cruisers that are on their way to Earth because they're going to challenge Supreme. They don't believe that that's the real Supreme or something like that. So, that's what's going on there, as we remember from like one of the other issues. Okay. Then we cut to Dulles International Airport, and apparently there is a Pacifica Coexistence Summit that's taking place, and a lot of political figures are coming to this summit. So it's an extremely big and important thing. And cut to Riot getting his new outfit, which definitely does look more Image house style now. we can see here, this was the 90s. So this was at a time where if you had a guy doing fashion, he had to be gay. And you can tell from the way that, like, he's holding his hand or whatever, and the way that he was talking, that it had to be that way. Okay, whatever. Yeah, we know it was the 90s, so that was like a 90s type of joke or something like that. But just as he's checking himself out and saying that he looks like, a young blood, message comes in on his wrist communicator saying that the terminal has been secured by unknown terrorist faction. To me, that sounds like weird dialogue, that it's been secured by a terrorist faction. Like, I don't feel like, I don't know, secured to me doesn't seem like the right choice of words. I get what they're saying, but it just seems weird because it seems like, that was the security or whatever. So that's weird. But in any event, terrorists have taken over Dulles International Airport and captured, all of the delegates and everything as hostages. So Temple is telling Riot this and then saying, when you get there, Bloodstrike is also going to be there, so act accordingly. I was never a Bloodstrike fan. I believe I read the first issue of Bloodstrike, which just kind of told me nothing other than the characters are assholes, and I wasn't into it. So I read one issue, and then that was the end. The artwork didn't grab me, the story didn't grab me, the characters didn't grab me. That's just, what it was at all times when it came to one of these Stream Studio comics. I kind of wish I had stuck with Supreme, though, because, again, it is something I'm enjoying. It's not flawless, but it's definitely one of the better books that they have put out. Okay, so here we have Bloodstrike, and Bloodstrike is keeping these reporters back. But what gets me here, I believe this is Tag or Stasis, I don't know. I can't remember, and they don't seem to name her here. But she's basically like, hey, why don't you let them through, and we'll see how they like it when we start shooting them. And it's like, what the hell? Again, I know that Bloodstrike was just a bunch of, I think they were dead people that were brought back. I don't even know. At any rate, they were assholes, right? So then Supreme and his team shows up, okay? And they announce themselves. They're like, hey, we're heavy metal. How can we help? They come in trying to be helpful. And then we get one of what I believe is one of the laziest superhero team tropes of all time. No one's ever happy to see another team. Nobody's ever happy to have help. They have this ego where they're like, oh, we can handle it on our own. We don't need anybody else here or anything like that. And, we're going to give you guys one chance to get the hell out of here, or we're going to have to beat you up first or whatever. Okay, they're acting like they're so concerned with the hostages in the building and that they're running out of time and that these terrorists have already started killing hostages according to them. But they're the ones, that are prolonging this. Instead of saying, great, you're here to help, let's go get started. They want to have an argument about them showing up when they're both working for the same, government section or sector or whatever, to do this. Both teams got called in, so they should know this. But anyway, Wolver vampire guy here, I can't remember his name. It's probably like Killstrike or something like, I don't know. He doesn't like, oh, it's Deadlock. Okay, yeah, but again, we'll go with Wolver vampire guy. He's, telling them to back the hell off or whatever, or he's going to, take them out or something like that, even though he's talking to Supreme. Apparently, again, none of these people know of this Superman type character, or not character, but being, this all-powerful being from the 1940s or whatever that had disappeared for 50 years. I get that, but wouldn't it have been in the history books? Wouldn't there be footage of this guy all over the place like they were seeing earlier in their like debriefing of Supreme or whatever? So it just seems to me that these people should be like, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't start with the guy who could kill me in the blink of an eye, okay? Foreplay here, I'm gonna tell a little story about that in a second. But foreplay here is like, why don't we see if I can get the message across, okay? Where they then go to a completely different place where they're able to pull up schematics of the entire airport, and she goes on to to describe everything that's taking place, and to tell them that by doing this, they've just killed like a shit ton of hostages. I don't know. This whole thing is just is bothering me or whatever. Again, they wasted a lot of time with this. These guys have already been like briefed as to what's going on. Okay, they were told by Temple that Dulles International Airport was taken over by terrorists. Okay, whatever information they have, they should readily have as well. So there shouldn't be anything. I just noticed Riot's haircut here. That's probably the most 90s thing that happened in this book. So that's hilarious that his costume also came with a haircut. But okay. This character foreplay here, this is something that Rob Liefeld has done. So we definitely know this is a Rob Liefeld character. In the pages of X-Force or New Mutants, he brought in a character with 4 arms whose name was Forearm. Okay. Then he brings in another character with 4 arms whose name is Foreplay. I don't know. Their superpowers having 2 more arms. They can multitask a little better. Does it make them stronger? I don't know. It's just another set of arms, okay? So I'm not sure, and that's it. That's the only powers, is you have a second set of arms coming out of you. Okay, big deal. It's what it is. So just recently, I was part of a Discord which was having some kind of 90s extreme comic book challenge where they're creating 90s extreme characters and creating a anthology comic or something like that about it. And me being funny, I'm going the complete Liefeld route. Like, you have to go with the Liefeld derivatives for the team. So like every team that came out here had the same formula. You had your Cable derivative, you had your Wolverine derivative, you had your Bedrock derivative, or Warpath derivative, whatever you wanted to call that. So you have your big muscle guy, you have your old leader with the receding hairline, you have some woman on there with whatever powers, and then you have like some Wolverine guy, and then you have like maybe some ninja guy, Deadpool type figure or whatever. So as a joke, I created a woman with 4 eyes and called her Foresight, but I spelled for F-O-U-R. Okay, so I thought that was hilarious. But it was a play on Liefeld's thing of, creating people with 4 arms and then using the wrong 4 to describe it. So it's whatever. But basically, again, they describe that, the terrorists are in there, they have the hostages, and because they wasted so much time explaining this to this team, that the hostages are already being killed, okay? Riot says, he's a speedster, he has super speed, he can go in there and give them their time back that they feel like they lost or whatever with this. And then Cable derivative number 3, I can't remember his name, Cabot, I think, is like yelling, and he's like, didn't you hear what she said? They're killing the hostages already. Our deadline's up, blah, blah, blah. And while he's going off about all of this, Supreme is just sitting there, and then Supreme's like, all right, fuck this, I'm going to go in on my own. And of course, we all know this. Like, we know Supreme is a Superman type character, and I also can't help but feel that there should be a lot of superheroes out there that are kind of bulletproof, okay? Like he's not the only one, but he walks in there doing this, and people are like, holy shit, bullets aren't hurting him. We're so surprised here or whatever, and they really shouldn't be. So again, he just sits there taking the shots for a while before he starts slaughtering every terrorist in the airport, right? Just doing whatever, spinning around with helicopter hands to cut people's heads off, cut them in half, shit like that. That's, I like it. But, what we're getting here is we're getting the Omni-Man, Homelander type. All right, so my video got cut off a little bit. I don't know what happened there. I was hearing a weird noise while I was recording, and apparently a button on my camera was being hit. But basically, as I was saying, we have, him doing his Omni-Man Homelander type of extreme violence against these terrorists. Because again, this isn't like your Boy Scout type Superman or whatever. He's in, doesn't give 2 shits about human beings or whatever. He's the soured Superman figure. Okay. So cut to another terrorist here who's like, hey, what's with all that noise? What's going on? Blah, blah, blah. All right, well, fuck this. I'm going to go ahead and kill all these hostages. And Supreme's just like, drop the gun. But he never really gives the guy a chance to drop the gun, right? Because he just runs over here to snatch him up, shatters the gun here. And this guy's like, please no. Now, again, like, Supreme here is like holding this guy's head. I'm thinking he's shooting like some radiation or heat vision or something like that at this guy's face, and his face like just explodes. Okay, that's cool. That's an extreme thing there. Like he has super strength. He could have just popped his head or whatever with his hands. But going the extra mile here to do that type of thing. And I think it's because we're trying to see here that Brian Murray's trying to portray this guy as not being your normal superhero, your Superman character. That he is again soured, on war, violence, and stuff like that. He's not somebody who's So the other two teams come running in to see Supreme holding on to this lifeless corpse here. And they're just like, oh my God, Supreme, how could you, And then Cable number 3, he's like, grow up, kid. This guy did what he had to do. I'm surprised he had the balls to do it. So he approves of how Super Cable number 4 handled this situation. And he's like, so now which one of you guys are going to run out there and tell the media about Superman here frying people's heads? And Riot is just like, we're talking about, all of this dead bodies, blah, blah, blah. So Supreme here looks up and something's grabbed his attention. So he goes flying off. And then we see here that there's a guy, some character here, who's like just saying, hey, you can hear me, can't you, Supreme? And now you're coming for me once again. And so Supreme, heard this guy's signal or whatever. And as we can see here, he's very angry. And this guy's like, come to me, Supreme, come to me. And then, of course, we get the sideways double page spread of a character named Chrome. We have a lot of suffering people back here. Is this guy a devil? Are these the souls of the damned? I don't know. But he's like, come charging to your grand finale, old fool. I think this is a pretty cool picture. The enemy is kind of bland. And then just to call him Chrome with a K, okay. All right. I mean, nothing big there, but they want to portray that, we have a villain here that Supreme wants to take out. And I guess that's going to be saved for issue number 4, okay, which we'll be doing again. All right. So I want to point out something here. So I have a friend that goes to the comic book store with me, and he was talking about how he wanted to read Dooms 4. And I have to be honest, I didn't even know Dooms 4 was a thing. I remember seeing, this ad or whatever in these comics back in, the 90s. But when I never saw it for sale anywhere. I never saw it come out. I just figured it was another one of those Liefeld deals where, he tells you something's coming out, then it never does. So there was actually a lot of Rob Liefeld or Extreme Studios comics that came out that I did not know existed. But my friend said he wanted to purchase these and read these because he had just heard about a movie deal where this is getting turned into a movie. And I think I remember reading some kind of interview back in the day that stated that Rob Liefeld had already talked to somebody about making a movie with this. So I don't know. I'm thinking my friend may have misunderstood because I cannot see any way from today somebody buying up this property to make a movie out of it. There are so many famous comic book properties that would just be much more lucrative than going with a failed... I mean, as far as I know, there was been 4 issues of this and nothing else. So I cannot see how this would be a thing. But also, I mean, for 30-some years, we've been hearing Liefeld state that all of these film projects are being done with his characters and stuff, and that we're going to get these movies. I think the latest thing I just heard was that Margot Robbie and Olivia Wilde had purchased the rights to Evangeline. Okay, another comic I had never seen in reality before. Like I know it exists. I know that they put some copies out, but I can't imagine that there were that many copies of it. I never heard anybody talking about it. It was never a big thing or whatever. I couldn't even tell you what Evangeline was. I mean, I did a redraw of one of the covers to Evangeline Glory. That is the extent of my knowledge of that character. We all know how, like, you know, Liefeld does this. Is he's like, you know, if it doesn't take off right away and become like the biggest property, then he just loses interest and cancels it and goes on to something else, right? Like, he will not stick with something unless it's huge. He had, you know, no real love of Deadpool before Deadpool became ultra famous. Now he's all about Deadpool. His excitement is there. Now he'll do all Deadpool projects over and over again because of that. So, you know, it's like that. But I remember, you know, there was supposed to be a Youngblood universe or something like that for Netflix. I remember hearing about that he was posting that stuff and stating that Netflix, you know, signed a deal or whatever. But then he's saying that he pulled out of it because he didn't like it. But then we find out that it's because he didn't even own the rights to his own characters anymore due to some poor business decisions and such. But yeah, so anyway, I just wanted to point that out about Dooms 4, that my friend wanted to see that. And I don't know. I guess I'll look up to see if there's supposed to be a movie happening with it or whatever. But okay, guys. So this was Supreme number 3. Not my favorite out of the series so far. It was okay. I don't like it when you have to do a crossover team thing and go with each team has to hate each other, or each team has to be the toughest, and we're going to fight the other team at the expense of other people's lives or whatever. I don't know. That just never sits well with me when I read that in a comic. So guys, again, if you like this video, please hit like. It helps my channel grow. And I'm a comic book artist who's trying to get his name out there. I'm currently working on my own comic called Ghost Girl, which should be completed in the next, you know, coming months or so. If you're interested in seeing more videos like this, or if you're interested in finding out more about my comic, hit subscribe so that way you can get any of the new videos that come out. I usually have a new video coming out daily. So guys, thank you for watching. Seriously, I appreciate it. I've been loving all the comments that I've been getting for the most part on my videos. I've only had like 1 or 2 people chime in with some, I don't know, some crazy stuff. But for the most part, you guys have been pretty damn awesome, and I really appreciate it. So thanks for watching, and until next time.